Sarah and Max, an unlikely pair in this wild podcast, they're the perfect flair. Sarah's charm, so feminine and free, a Cali girl spirit under the podcast tree. Max a strong force with a punch in every word. Together they navigate the dating absurd. Don't forget to hit subscribe, join the crew for more laughs and tales just for you. Now back to the show.
Guides and Pigeon. Go ahead.
Does that mean it's recording?
It is.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Good for Shidduchim. I'm your host, Sarah Levine, and I have my co-host, eligible bachelor, Max Landisman, across from me. So today we're going to touch upon the idea of the goal for a first date, what somebody may have in mind as a goal and what perspectives they want on the first date. And then we're going to also talk about some crazy dating stories.
Oh, I'm sure you have plenty of those.
I don't think I do. I have a couple that I have in the back of my head, but nothing crazy. But I guess we'll see.
I mean, I have literally an endless trove of dating stories. I've probably gone out anywhere between 500 and 1,000 dates, and 99% of them were one and dones.
Is it really between 500 and 1,000 dates?
Yeah, there's no way I went on anything less than that.
Do you write them down?
No.
Oh.
In fact, if I go out with someone for the first time, we go out and that's pretty much it. I don't even remember the second I drop them off, I don't even remember their name. But if I see them, I'll recognize them. But a lot of times I'll see someone, passing by, and I don't even know that they'll say hi. I don't even know their name because I'm just whatever.
It's interesting. Sometimes when I'm talking to somebody, I don't know how to place him, and then I'm like, after I'm done talking, I'm like, I think I went out with him. So I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so there just seems to be kind of a theme, I guess, with a first date. Either shachans talk about what somebody should accomplish on a first date. Like, what are your perspectives that you want to gain from the first date? Like, do you want to talk about or understand how many kids a person wants, or how they, or like the type of home, where you want to live, or do you want to gain more of a perspective of, are you attracted to the person? Can you speak with the person? Is there an emotional connection, a physical connection? So that's kind of what we wanted to talk about today.
For me, I hate talking about anything super personal and, how many kids do you want to have? That kind of thing is absolutely insane to talk about on the first date. That's my personal opinion. I know we're going to be talking a lot about cringe dating stories. I have so many just on this topic alone, where I just think it's ridiculous. But a lot of the time it will come up because the girl will ask it, and it's for me at least, it's a very big turnoff if they start asking about, where do you see yourself in 5? It's like an interview. It's like a job interview. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I can already see the minivan, whatever it is. And if you want to turn a guy off any faster, it's a great way to do it. I'm very against it. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely some people's way of going into their first date. Like, I know more of the yeshivish way of dating is to be more formal on the first date and try to, I guess, ask those types of questions. That is more like going back and forth, like an interview, and kind of just reiterating, I guess, what everybody's just seen and heard on the resume or from references. But for me, it was more of, do you have an emotional connection with the person? Are you having fun? Like genuine fun. Do you want to find out more about the person? Do they want to find out more about you? Do you care about the person? That's what I would think about on the first date.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would also say there's a way to, I guess, talk about it without talking about it, I guess. For example, you can find, I've learned over this past week that if you ask someone, if you're stranded on a desert island, what are 3 things you would bring? and shockingly will actually tell you a ton about a person. So, for example, not only what they say, but how they say it. Like people who are very regimented and just like they have no outside the box thinking at all.
Yeah.
They're like, they would be like scrutinizing the rules. Essentially, they're like so focused on, well, like, we're talking essentials. Are we talking about
They're just overthinking
everything and
Yeah.
and it's not fun. So you're learning that this person sucks,
or you're just learning
and they're also
that,
probably an accountant.
you're just learning that they have different, I guess like a little bit about the person without actually asking them personal
Right.
questions.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it. It's more of an organic type of meeting, and like I do feel like sometimes there's intentions from the shadchan to find out. You have to find out X, Y, Z about this person on the first date, and then the second date you find out X, Y, Z, and there's just a formality about it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Especially if the person, like him, either a guy or a girl, if they need a different way of thinking of a first date, then they shouldn't feel like they're doing anything wrong by not talking about like some more intimate details or anything that becomes personal.
I remember when I first started, when I was 21 in the shidduchim, like the actual formal
Oh my gosh,
shidduchim
you
in
started when
Chicago.
you were 21?
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
Those are from me. And so I remember, I think it was the second or third date, and the shadchan was like one of those super like old school traditional talks, like 5 miles an hour. I've been in shidduchim for 35 years, and 3 of the matches are still happy today.
Oh my God. Is
But-
that how she sounded like?
Exactly
Exactly.
the way. And so I remember her telling me that on this date, you have to list 3 things that you like about her. And then to my dismay, or whatever word you want to use, I found out on the date that she told her to also give me 3 things. Tell me. It was so awkward and so uncomfortable. It was totally unnecessary. It was like we were both following a script. And I even back then, I was just never, I was never into scripts and that kind of thing. I was just, I guess at that point in time, I was following, I was, I didn't rebel against the typical shidduchim thing, whatever at the time. I kind of followed the rules for that. Didn't last long, but they're just stupid. I just, I don't, for me, I haven't really been involved. I don't like working with a traditional shadchan anyways. What would be like for you in your experience? What would it be that they would kind of bring up that you would, they expect for you to do on a first date?
I think it's more of, can you tolerate the person? That was always what I was told. Even if I didn't want to go out on a second date, I was always asked like, well, can you tolerate him? Do you see yourself like speaking to him like on a day-to-day? And I was like, sure, like as a person, as a friend, like, yeah, I can tolerate him. But as a partner or somebody who I would want to be romantically involved with, I just didn't see myself. And it wasn't because we didn't have like deep conversations about like how many kids we wanted, where we wanted to live, and like how I wanted to cover my hair. It was more that organically the chemistry just wasn't there.
Yeah. I think it's kind of an oxymoron to even say, could you tolerate this? There's a huge difference between can you tolerate somebody and if you really want to speak to that person, meaning a friend, you want to speak to you look forward to talking to them. Tolerate someone could be someone you totally despise, but for whatever reason
Right.
you have, like, could be a client, could be, whoever, you have to speak with them and you can quote unquote tolerate them. That, in my opinion, is the dumbest thing as far as if you can what is that? What kind of
Yeah.
advice is that?
I know. It's very interesting when they use the word tolerate.
Tolerate.
Because on a day-to-day for forever, is that is that going to be a good, I don't know, is that a good relationship to tolerate somebody? I mean, I feel like you'd have to have more of a tolerance with a partner.
Tolerance sounds like, it's like, dealing with a coworker. You can tolerate them and you can, you have to
Yeah.
work together. But like, this is the biggest decision in your life that you have to live with.
You
As
also-
long as you can tolerate them. Are you kidding?
Right. And then I would also say on my first dates, I would always have in the back of my mind reasons to go out again on a second date and reasons to not. Like, even if I like the person, I would always have to prepare the shadchan, like reasons of why I wanted to go out. And then if I didn't like the person, I would have to prepare for reasons why I didn't want to go out. And then also, if a guy would say yes to going out on a second date, I would have to also say reasons why I didn't want to go out with him. But this was all while you're just trying to go out on a first date. There's just so much pressure.
Yeah.
And like so many things that go on in your mind. And sometimes it was hard for me to just focus on the actual person sitting in front of me rather than trying to have this peripheral like noise about the next date when we haven't even gone through the first date.
Yeah.
So I thought I found that very challenging.
Yeah. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know women at all. I don't know what they're thinking or anything of that nature.
We don't know either, Max.
But
We're very complicated.
definitely, what I'm trying to get at is that I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, but if a woman doesn't feel safe or she feels pressure or anything of that nature, there is no chance of connecting, because if they don't feel comfortable, then it's almost as if it's a complete waste to even meet, if there's that amount of pressure from the beginning. I mean, I want to hear your thoughts on that, but for mine,
Just like pressure in general from like what we should be thinking.
it could be that. It could be, who is this guy? Like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know if he's trustworthy. I don't know if, you don't know him from a hole in the wall.
Right.
So there could be a million different things. Could this guy possibly be harmful to me in any way? Or, when you meet someone, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but when you meet someone for the first time, right? Even not in the Jewish world, in any world.
Right. You just want to feel the person out.
Yeah. And so, I think it's especially hard that if, along with that, and in addition to, it feels like a job interview, that it doesn't give the person allowance to essentially feel anything or to connect in any way.
Right. The organic connection is kind of deteriorated before it's even started a little bit.
Yeah. So, I was wondering from your perspective, is that, if that's the case.
I do feel like on the first date, I would want to go in to see, am I comfortable with him? Like if just in general, like if I don't feel like I'm in danger or anything, and then I would want to, find out more about him. But as a woman, you do want to feel like you're in a safe environment and you're comfortable. I know we could talk about this in a different episode or a different segment, but I know there's like a couple women, when I speak to them, they say that they prefer not to be picked up on a
Right.
first date
Sure.
versus women who think that it has to be done. Like,
Yeah.
it is the way that a guy picks you up and there is nothing else to say. I was on the side of, I don't want to be picked up because I really don't know who he is or what he does. And on the first date, I would just want to see, like, can I talk to this person? Is he personable? Do I feel comfortable with him? And then go from there. I would never, my brain would never go to immediately on a second date. Do I see him on a second date, third date, or like down the road? Like, you have to slow your brain down at a certain point, or else you just kind of get lost in the sauce,
Kind of lost in the sauce.
as they say.
Yes, that's how
but
they say.
shadchan would I just felt the pressure that I would have to know the answer to go out again on a second date, without even ending the first date. And then if you do go out on a second date, then you have to have in the back of your mind, okay, well, what about a third date? But you're not even done with your second date. So you're kind of like in this like circle that kind of was a little unsettling.
I totally hear that. So, I mean, to push that point even further, I would say if I'm going out with somebody, you know, especially for the first time, and I don't necessarily want to go out on a second date, I don't know if I would, you know, have to think about that the whole time. But if the matchmaker, if I actually speak to them, which I don't, asks me, why don't you want to go out? I feel like I would know right away. Like I can give them a real answer.
Right.
Right. So, you know, why? So my question is, I guess, to play devil's advocate, why is it that it almost kills the date from the beginning to, you know, that they put so much pressure on? Like, is it because whatever you answer is not good enough to them? They just keep pushing you to go out anyways? Or what do you think it is?
Yeah, I do feel like the Shadchans have like, they have the right answers and the wrong answers for why you want to go out again, and why you do or don't want to go out again. And if you don't come up with a good enough excuse, then you are basically, I felt I was forced to go out on second and third dates because I didn't have a good enough excuse to go out. So
what would be like an example of something like that?
a bad excuse or a good excuse?
Yeah, like it's like
a bad excuse always would be like, I just really wasn't into, like I wasn't feeling it. Like
you
I
weren't attracted
really,
to him.
Either I wasn't romantically, I didn't see myself romantically involved with him, or I didn't like his personality. Those were excuses that I was always told, looks can grow. Maybe he didn't mean what he said. But the thing is like, instead of making they would just make excuses in order for me to go out with a guy that I would feel uncomfortable with. Mm-hmm. So it was more of things like that would make me feel uncomfortable. It doesn't necessarily have to be like he said mean things to me about me in front of my face. It could have been anything that made me feel uncomfortable. But those were bad excuses. Excuses of like him not showing up, or him not opening the door, or not coming to pick me up. Like those were...
Whoa, people just ghosted you? They didn't pick you up?
Oh my gosh.
I thought you were against people picking you up.
Right, that's true. But if a guy, let's say we had planned on him picking me up, and he picked me up late.
Like how late?
I'll tell, probably a half hour late.
That's a lot.
Like the shotgun would be like, yeah, that's not appropriate. But maybe on the second date, he'll be more tentative. But like at that point, like I don't want to go out with somebody who literally when this guy specifically picked me up, it didn't seem like he
was all that interested.
Yeah. If he was like stuck in traffic or like had to reschedule for whatever reason, personal reasons, that's fine. But like it just seemed like he kind of didn't make it a priority, which was fine. So I don't have to go out with him.
That's right. Did he even, call you or message you?
No, that was the thing. I tried to call him and I texted him, and I was like, I'm stupid for texting him if he's driving. So I called him and he didn't answer. So I was like, okay, whatever. Like maybe I'm being ghosted. But then he ended up coming, like I would say like a half hour late.
Wow. And he didn't call you?
He didn't call me, no.
What a douche.
It's okay. It's fine.
It's okay that you don't have to...
And I gave him, like, I did go out with him. I wasn't like, I'm not getting in the car. I'm not going to go out with you. This is ridiculous. I did give him a second date. I did give him a full date, but it just didn't like vibe, and that's okay. But the fact that he was late picking me up, I think the shadchan was more inclined to be like, well, that's just not gentlemanlike. So that makes sense. You don't want to go out on a second date. But if I would tell her like, yeah, I really just didn't see it, like personality-wise, I really didn't feel it. I feel like she'd be like, oh, you should go out again.
You know what my advice is when someone says they're just not feeling it? I'm like, you should feel harder. I told
Max, this is a family show.
Yeah, I know. I'm just messing. But even like the few matches that I've made, it's almost like once they've met for the first time, my job is, I don't care. My hands are off. I don't push people to do anything. It's up to them. If someone legitimately really does not want to go out with someone, especially if it takes time away from that, time is very important. Burnout, everything else that gets involved with dating. You should be forced to do anything. If you don't want to go out with them,
I
screw
definitely
it.
agree. I definitely agree. If you need to have an excuse to go out with somebody, or you feel like you have to make excuses to not go out with them, I feel both of those things are a reason to just kind of give your step back a little bit and see if you actually do want to continue with them. There are, yes, crazy and like stupid reasons to not continue to go out with somebody.
Right.
But if that person feels that those are excuses not to continue, then who am I to say like, oh, just put that aside, put your feelings aside and put your deal breakers aside and just continue to go out with them.
Right. So, for you, like, I happen to know you personally and find you to be a very genuine person. If you say that, I don't want to go out with so-and-so for XYZ reasons, I wouldn't really do a lot of pushback. So, but I'm going to bring up another case of kind of the opposite, where, if someone sets somebody up and they really do give like a real BS response, like a real stupid, I don't want to go out with this person
Like,
because
I thought he had blonde hair and he has dirty blonde hair.
or he's I thought he was 5'11" and 3/4. He says he's 6 foot, whatever it is. So therefore, like, really stupid reasons. Here, this is where I feel the shotgun should really step in, and it's not necessarily forcing them to go out, but if that's the case, the shotgun should stand firm and it's like, all right, I'm just not working with you anymore. Goodbye. Get the hell out. That's where they really should take a stand.
You think so? Like,
100%.
if it's just like nitpicking a little bit?
If you're really that ridiculous, like that's a stupid reason, right? And there's some really stupid reasons.
Some people will argue like, but that's her deal breaker. She wants to, date somebody who's 5'11" and 3/4 and he's not. Or on the resume it said that he was a liberal and then he decided to become conservative.
Okay, that's different.
Is that different?
That's very different.
Oh, okay.
Well, I've gone out with my fair share of liberals who feel that, if someone just mass shooting a school,
Okay.
then that's okay. Whatever. So
Okay,
in
we
that
don't have to
case,
get into it.
I would argue that yes, that is a big deal. But
I do understand what you're saying, where there are some reasons for a shotgun or for whoever set them up to kind of give them a little bit of a push and be like, maybe you're not being so open-minded. But honestly, it's not, I don't have an agenda when I set people up. If somebody wants to give like a really ridiculous excuse to not go out with somebody, then they're just going to miss out on a really good person.
Okay, this is where my salesmanship comes into play.
Yeah.
That when someone gives a real BS excuse, the way my brain works is they're not being truthful with me. There's another underlying reason that's going on. I would even bring up from the beginning, I'm like, do you even want to get married? Do you want to get married? Maybe some people say they
Right.
do, but maybe they don't.
Exactly.
It could be a bigger problem.
Yeah.
It could be they're fighting do they even want to be religious anymore?
Right.
Who the hell knows?
Right.
So I think this is where Shadchanim really need to take a sales course in a way. Like, I don't want, but
It's good. No, it's good that you brought that up, because I have asked people, do you want to get married? Like, are you dating to get married, or are you dating to just meet a partner? Like, what are you looking for? And a lot of people within the modern Orthodox community have like kind of stepped back when I've asked that question, because I don't think a shadchan has actually asked them straight up, are your intentions to be committed to somebody and marry them?
Right.
Because it's just a given. Somebody's talking to a shadchan.
Yeah.
It's just a given that they want to get married.
Yep.
But they could just be even going back to the first date perspective, they're just doing what their parents are telling them. They're just doing what the shachan told them. And that's their first date. Their perspective on the first date is just going on a first date, putting on their suit, putting on their best tie, and looking their best and looking their sharpest, and just going out on the first date and doing whatever mom and dad and shachan say.
That's right. It's kind of like you're basically a sheep. You just do whatever its master says.
Sheep are really soft.
They are really soft, and so are these people. They're soft with no backbone, no backbone. So why don't I understand? So why don't you want to go out with this person? Oh, and they won't even give you an answer. And I'm like, you know what? Screw. Shotgun should say, screw you. Get lost. I'm not working with this person.
To be honest, I don't say it to them, but in the back of my mind, I'll say, you know what? They're just not ready. I'm not going to set them up, or I'm not going to go out of my way to make this person, happy. And yeah, I just don't go out of my way necessarily. Or I'll say to them, I don't really understand what you want. Maybe get back to me. I wouldn't
even take the call.
Oh.
If he calls you back.
Oh, okay.
Or she calls you back.
You stick to your word, Max.
It's because these people have been pampered from the beginning, and they think they can just walk all over people, But again, it works both ways.
It does work both ways, but I think they're just going through the motion. You just go through the motion.
And I can't, me, I can't stand that kind of stuff.
I know, and when I went on my first date with my now husband, who you set us up.
Yep.
He told me his intentions on the first date, or the perspective he wanted to gain to going out on a first date with me, was just to see if he could have fun. And
you guys spoke about that?
Yeah.
When did you speak about it?
Shlomi, when did we speak about that?
We did.
Yes, we did. We did speak about it.
Probably after that.
I think it wasn't on the first date, but I think as we were approaching engagement area, I think he said the first date, my intentions on the first date, I was just trying to get rid of all the the shidduch pressure.
Yeah.
All the pressure for what I should be looking for on a first date, talking to her about family and hashkafa and the type of house and community. Yep. And he was like, I'm just going to make sure that I can have fun with her. And on my first date, I just wanted to see with Shlomi, I just wanted to, see if I could be comfortable around him.
Yeah, apparently he gave off very schmuck vibes, apparently. Which is it's literally like saying Mother Teresa is going shooting.
He's the sweetest man, but let me tell you, he's very passionate about sharks.
Yeah, that was, when I heard that, I'm like, Shlomi? And then Shlomi's like, if she thinks I'm a schmuck, I've got no shot. At anything.
Yeah, but anyways, did you want to do you have crazy cringe dating stories?
So I think I have too many cringe stories.
Okay, just do one right now, and then I'll do one.
By the way, I'm really kind of throwing myself out there, because when I say this, I know a girl's reaction, and it definitely not good for me, for sure, but I still think it's hilarious, so it's still worth it.
As long as it's good for shidduchim.
So as we were talking about, first dates, talking about family and all this, how many kids you want? So with this particular girl who I actually, very few people I do really respect, she happens to be one of them, because she took a lot of my jokes. This wasn't necessarily the first date, it was the seventh date, but we were on the boardwalk.
So you guys were already kind of in it.
For me to be on the seventh date is there's a better chance of Mashiach coming, but we were on a seventh date. And so she started, mentioning about, she's at a point she really wants to have start a family today, and she was going on about that. And as she was talking, I got off the bench and started undoing my pants. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "All right, let's do this." And every woman right now is just cringing, and every guy is dying.
What did she do when you?
She was a really good sport of it. She laughed at everything like that. I have so many good. With her, were so many good stories.
That is actually kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Good for her. She sounds like a trooper.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think she was one of the very few who could take one of these types of jokes, especially.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she had a good sense of humor.
She definitely did. There's no question.
Shidduchim. Do you
That's
have
right.
any other cringeworthy dating stories?
Well, I said one. I gotta hear.
Now it's my turn. Okay. Okay. I did tell you this story, but I'll say it for the podcast.
Right.
I went on a 25-minute date.
Ouch. Wow.
I think it was 25 minutes from
That's not
meeting
good for
him.
shidduchim.
It's not good for shidduchim. It was 25 minutes from meeting him and sitting down, and then me getting up and leaving.
Wow.
So it was, we actually lived near each other, so we just met on the corner of a block on the Upper West Side, and we walked to Petit's Bakery. It wasn't.
Shout out to Petit's. It's
It
great.
wasn't. It's so good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't too far from us, and we ordered whatever we ordered, coffee or whatever. We sat down and we were waiting for our food to come to the table, and he asked me a question, and I kind of felt a little offended by the question, and I basically kind of told him off a little bit.
Could we find out what the question was? Or
It was about, I don't know why I was so offended, to be honest with you, but it was about the type of seminary I went to, and he was like, I felt like he was challenging me a little bit about my seminary.
what do you challenge you? What do you mean?
Like, why I decided to go there, and then he also asked me why I didn't go to a Chabad seminary, and I was like, I'm not Chabad. I don't know why I would do that. Not that it's bad, but it's just not what I wanted out of seminary.
Sure.
And this was like maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, so I was 30.
Why
I was out of
people
seminary
care?
for
Nobody
like
cares.
for like 10 years.
That's also another problem with the shidduchim.
And after I kind of challenged him back, he was like, so how do you feel that this date is going? And I was like, it's been 15 minutes. I have I can't really answer that question.
Nice.
How does anybody know after 15 minutes how a date is going? And he was like, well, I don't think it's going so well.
What do you do for a living?
And so he was a physician's assistant.
Yeah, so it sort of makes sense. It's got to be one of those.
I don't know. It was kind of off. And so I was like, okay, so if it's like not going well for you, I'll just get up and leave. So I
Ouch.
got up and I left.
What about your food?
It's fine. I didn't want to stay.
Wait, so it sounded like you were done after 15 minutes.
Well, it was 25 minutes.
What a schmuck. What the hell's the matter with these people?
I was like, so after I got up and I left, I called my friend and I was like, you have no idea what just happened.
I don't think it's going so well.
He was
Like,
literally
what-
like, well, I don't think it's going well. And I was like, okay, well, why would I stay here and waste your time?
This must have been a Why You Connects match.
It wasn't.
Oh, shocker.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was actually my mom's friend set us up.
There it is.
But
Second guess.
it wasn't like a totally random situation.
Like,
I don't know.
when he spoke, like, was he weird? Like,
No.
or he just asked weird questions?
He was asking a little invasive questions, I would say, for the first date, kind of very personal questions. Yeah.
I think it sounded like he started learning how to speak to someone only 15 minutes before the date happened.
Maybe.
So, what do you think the date, how it's going? It's not going so well for me. How's it going for you?
I know.
I had to text my mother what to say.
It was very off-putting, but that was one of my stories.
That is pretty bad. And so the person that set you up, what happened afterwards? Did you?
Well, I told her what had happened, and he actually called this woman who set me up to speak badly of me.
Of course.
And
wow.
she said, if you're going to speak badly about Sarah, I'm going to hang the phone up.
That, good
And she
for her.
did. And I appreciate that because I don't know what he could have said within 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I guess I was that bad of a date.
No, you
I don't
weren't.
know.
No, you weren't. It was him.
I don't know.
No. No.
I wish him all the best.
No, we don't.
I
I
don't
just
know,
wish
but
that
I
he
do.
learns from his mistakes and he grows from it and can learn how to speak to another human being.
Yes.
How's it going? Is it going? Does he do that at job interviews also? It's
I
like,
have no idea.
so how's the job? Because this isn't going well on my end. You know, your company sucks.
Okay.
I wonder
Max,
if you got the job.
Do you have another story?
I mean, that kind of story happened to me in a similar way where I call these people the one word answer girls. These are the creme de la creme worst people to go out with ever. Why? It's almost, I would get more out of talking to a wall than I get talking to these people. They all happen to be lawyers for whatever, like these corporate pieces of trash lawyer, whatever. Not knocking them, but I am. But
You totally are.
I am.
So what do you mean by one word? You'd ask them like, oh, so how are you doing? How was your day?
So
Good.
if a guy were to ask you that, what would you say?
I'd probably say I had a really good day off.
Oh, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
then there would be like a follow-up question, right?
Yeah, for sure.
With them, it's like,
That's how conversation goes.
Right. With
And
them-
you see how it flows.
with them, it's a good.
One word answer.
And just sit there and I'm just,
Yeah.
and most of the time as the guy, I do feel like I have to, lead the conversation. Mm-hmm. But in this case, I feel like I'm pretty good with conversation in general. Mm-hmm. But in this case, this was brutal. This was just, oh my gosh. It's
Like, what do you do for a living? I'm a lawyer. What do you do?
and
on
then
your
just stare
days
at you.
off?
So
I work.
Do you know? And so you know what I did? I was so fed up.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, when I picked her up, she was already pissed off. You could tell right away.
Oh.
There were rumors that, when I say rumor, this was through a friend of ours who set this up. Uh-huh. And I made the mistake of apparently I was supposed to call her, but instead I texted her to set up the date. And supposedly she was upset about that. So like she already, it sounded like she already was out of the date anyways. Like it was never going to work to begin with. And so again, by the way, if you are a girl who's listening to this and that's the case, then just save the guy the time and just don't go out.
Or maybe just communicate that and say, oh, I was expecting a phone call. I'm a little upset you texted.
Which is totally good. That's what makes you Sarah. I was gonna say Sarah Levine, but Sarah Landisman. And because guys are guys. Mm-hmm. We speak different languages.
100%.
Especially for the first time, mm-hmm. for a girl to think that a guy does something that it's malicious or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you're not able to handle like something so simple like this and just communicate, as you said, communicate that.
Yeah.
Then it's not just the guy.
No.
It's also you.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. And I think there's a lot of that also, but that's not really the point.
It just sounds a little passive aggressive. Like if she was upset, she should have told you why and just not have brought it out on the first date.
So
it's kind of upsetting.
Because this isn't a video, you can't get the whole reaction of what I do. When there's a point where I'm just like, this is going nowhere. Like I'm starting to get upset. Like she clearly like checked out.
Yeah.
I don't think she ever checked in from the beginning.
Yeah.
So like we're talking, but I want to be a mensch. Like I'm not going to get up after 15 minutes and say, let's go home. Mm-hmm. Like I'll try to drag it out. Minimum an hour.
Right.
It's got to be an hour.
Trying to put in the effort.
Right. So at this point it was like an hour and I carry this whole conversation. I'm like, I'm wiped out. Yeah. I've got nothing to say.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I nod my head real slow.
Yeah.
And I squint my eyes and then randomly I'll stick my tongue out just a little bit. I make her feel as uncomfortable as humanly possible. Like, oh, you're such a jerk.
Where did you learn? Like, where did you come up with that?
I don't remember. It was definitely from TV somewhere. I don't remember a movie or I can't remember where it's from. But every time I do it, like I could just do it on you right now.
Max,
it's almost like
ridiculous.
I know. That's the point. But it gets a reaction that's totally worth it. I felt it was really unfair for me to just completely bash the whole date.
Yeah.
Completely bashed the whole date.
Yeah.
You know, I have to come to this.
But if you were the person that I got out with, you would ask her immediately, so how do you feel the date's going? I
even
don't think
to
it's
ask.
going well.
Yeah. So I'm like, could you excuse me just to go to the bathroom? I just need a breather. I'm just like, I just need to go. I have to go on my phone, and I just needed to rant a little bit. So I dropped her off fine. And then the next day I hear she bashed me, you know, about this guy had nothing to say. I'm like, oh, it was me, right?
Oh, no.
And so the person who set me up really backed me up and said, I know Max very well. The last thing anyone could ever say is he ran out of things to say.
Yeah.
Right?
But also you're like socially appropriate. Like if she's not saying anything, what would make you wanna, you know, you're playing off her what she's also
This is a two-way,
trying to
right? Exactly.
trying to have a conversation, and like if she's not gonna talk, then like you're
Forget
gonna
it.
be like, okay, now what?
100%. You know, you could be the greatest conversationalist in the world, but
Yeah,
if the other person can't respond to you, then, you know, unless you're like a mime and you can just, you know, talk as if you're talking to yourself, it's like, so how's everything? Everything was great.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was brutal.
That
I
does
think
sound brutal.
that may have been the worst date I've ever gone out with, ever. But I just find it humorous that, you know, in your case also, that he kind of was bashing you about how you were XYZ. And in my case, she was bashing me as far as, you know, he was just all disheveled. He just had nothing. He didn't know what to say. He had nothing to say. I'm like, pretty sure you're talking about yourself.
Yeah, maybe she was projecting a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
I did want to say there was this one guy, another date, and this one guy took me to Talia's Steakhouse on a first date.
Still,
And this was actually through YU Connect.
oh, you know, the highest echelon of matchmaking.
And this woman actually had called me, which you're not allowed to do. She called me about her brother. She said she saw my resume on YU Connects, and she's a connector on YU Connects. And I agreed to go out with him. I was being very open-minded at the time. It was kind of like my year of yes. I was just saying yes to everybody.
I hear.
And he told me that he would meet me at Talia's Steak. No, I'm sorry. He would pick me up. I was on the Upper West Side at the time, and he would drive me to Talia's. And
Wait, where were you if you weren't on Upper West Side?
Washington Heights.
Oh, you lived there before?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
And so he took me to Talia's, and I was thinking, like, this is actually a really nice steakhouse, and it's, like, kind of expensive for the first date. And I actually had said something. I said, this is actually really nice, and I appreciate you taking me to Talia's, like, for a first date. Like, it's very fancy, and I just, like, thank you so much. This was really nice. And he was like, well, of course, if I don't take you out on a first date to a nice place, there's no second date.
Wow, really?
And I said, what?
Did he realize you're from Pittsburgh?
And he was like, yeah, like, if you don't take a girl out, like, basically, if you don't wine her and dine her and treat her like take her to a fancy place on the first date,
Sure.
you're not guaranteed a second date. And I was like, what makes you think you're guaranteed a second date in general? And he was like, oh, I never thought of that. I did not go out with him a second time.
Ooh.
It kind of threw me off a lot.
I hear. Did it potentially come off as, you know, from a guy's perspective, maybe, where, you know, he had that notion, which I could see how he got that. And it's not necessarily he meant that he's guaranteed a second date, but the only way to get to a second date is, meaning if he went to Starbucks, in his mind, it sounded like he'll never get a second date.
I'm not so sure, but maybe somebody told him that. Like, you have to take her to a nice environment in order to guarantee a 95% chance, I guess, of having a second date. But for me, it was more about the quality of the date.
Yeah.
It's not like about, like, if it was a nice guy and he took me on a park bench somewhere and we had a really nice time, I would take that over a steak dinner. That
Totally.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, this is where knowing your customer really applies. Like, if I know a girl's from Pittsburgh everybody knows what a Pittsburgh person is. I feel like I actually went out with a girl who didn't even know where Pittsburgh was.
People think it's in New Jersey somewhere.
You got to be from Brooklyn or something.
Yeah.
Like no.
A lot of people don't know where.
Come on, I mean, if you're a sports fan, you know Pittsburgh Steelers or whatever it is. I mean,
don't know.
Come on, people.
I know.
But you know that Pittsburgh people are very down to earth. They're not into stuff like, you know, a night out for them was like a frozen pizza and like Blockbuster.
I didn't grow up with fancy restaurants, that's for sure. But I'm also not that type of girl. Like, I can't be bought. So
Definitely. Yeah, you only work with the tip top of the shadchanim in the world.
Yeah.
Myself.
Yeah.
Shidduchim.
Yeah.
You know, it's very good for shidduchim.
It is. It's very good for shidduchim.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening, guys. If you want to email us or if you have any, we're actually looking for resumes to read. So
Yeah,
if anybody wants to send the resumes or review, you can send it to goodforshidduchim@gmail.com. It's GOODFORSHIDDUCHIM@gmail.com. Dang. That is a long email.
We should just change it to just 3 letters.
But for now, that's what it is. But thank you so much for listening, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. And remember, everything will always be about shidduchim. Catch you in the next episode.